Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Charts with Dan. We are a little bit late this week because I got off the plane yesterday from Park City, came home, started to prep the show, and if you were disappointed that last week's show was a little bit short, then you're going to get your money's worth this week because we have so much to go over, including streaming numbers with all of the biggest shows of the year, as well as updates to the all-time streaming charts. But more importantly, we have the box office from this past weekend, which saw a huge win for YouTuber Markiplier and his film, which was independently produced and distributed. It almost took that #1 spot. There's some other things we're going to talk about in the box office top 10. So let's just jump right into it and look at the results from last weekend's box office. At #1, when all the final numbers came in, was Send Help from Sam Raimi at $19.1 million, which is a good opening for that film, but it has kind of been eclipsed by the film that is at #2, which is Iron Lung, as I mentioned, from Markiplier, who is a big YouTuber here on the platform. It came in at $18.36 million, so less than $1 million away from taking that #1 spot. This is an estimate, an updated estimate that came in from Deadline yesterday, and it was based off a stronger Sunday than had originally been seen. So this is something you really don't see very often. Not only a film that was independently produced, but when you look at the marketing, the stories that I've read about the film is that there was essentially very little spent on marketing. It was all done through YouTube, through social media. The budget on the movie was reportedly around $3 million. So this is already an incredibly profitable film. And again, as I said, to cut through the studio system and to get a movie in this many theaters, to get it up to #2, it really just goes to show you the power of a platform that is considered by the many to be a non-traditional platform, still a YouTube channel and social media. But this is maybe the most high-profile result that we have seen so far. Now, I don't necessarily know if this is an official list, but I tried to put together a list of the biggest openings for YouTube creators domestically. There may have been some people that I left out. Again, this is just based on my research. And I included David F. Sandberg. He really takes these top 4 spots here because he did start his career posting a lot of what he did on social media and YouTube specifically, including Lights Out, which would become one of his top grossing films. So these are the biggest opening for YouTube creators. Shazam at #1 at $53.5 million. That's from David F. Sandberg, as is Annabelle Creation at $35 million. Shazam! Fury of the Gods at $30 million, and Lights Out at $21.6 million. And then we have Markiplier and Iron Lung at #5 at $18.3 million. Then we have Talk to Me from the Philippou brothers. They posted on YouTube as Raka Raka. They came in at $10.4 million. Another David F. Sandberg film, Until Dawn, is at #7 at just over $8 million. Then we have Bring Her Back from the Philippou / Raka Raka at #8. Together from director Michael Shanks, who ran a channel called Tim Tim Fed at $6.7 million. And then we have Chris Stuckman's Shelby Oaks at #10 at $2.3 million. If there's anyone I left out, I'm sure that somebody will let me know. So some YouTube creators now kind of graduating from the platform and making their own feature films. And it was really interesting to see. I was tracking Iron Lung as it was heading toward theaters. I'm going to be 100% honest. I haven't really watched much of what Markiplier does. It's kind of in a different world than I am. And I don't watch, strangely enough, a whole lot of YouTube in general because I'm busy making stuff for YouTube. But it's great just to see an independent film do this well. And I know it's early in the show, but since we're talking about Iron Lung, I wanted to get to today's trivia question. It is very rare for a movie that's not involved with a major studio to be #1. So the question is, since 2021, how many films that weren't produced and or distributed by a major studio, a subsidiary of a major studio, or a theater chain have opened at #1 domestically? I'll give you a second to think, although it'd be a lot to think through. The answer is 4. There was The Marksman, which was early on when theaters were reopening. That was distributed by Open Road. There was The Boy and the Heron, which was distributed by G Kids. There was Civil War, which was the #1 movie. A24 is still not considered a major studio, although they're getting bigger. And then Terrifier 3, which was distributed by Cineverse, a very similar story to Iron Lung as far as word of mouth, not relying on traditional marketing, but exceedingly rare for a movie that's not connected to a theater chain or a major studio to open at #1. Even movies like Demon Slayer and a lot of the anime films, that's through Crunchyroll. That's through a subsidiary of Sony Pictures. So a lot to be proud of there for Iron Lung and for Markiplier. At number 3 is the documentary Melania, which opened at $7.16 million. It is about the First Lady of the United States. And it's in a weird way, it's in many ways a mirror image of Iron Lung. Iron Lung opened to $18.36 million, but it was very profitable because its budget was about $3 million. Melania opening at $7.16 million, which is a very high figure for a documentary. We'll look at that in a minute. But it was the most highly, I'm not going to say budgeted, but the most highly paid for documentary of all time. Amazon acquired it for about $40 million. Reports have the promotion for this documentary being at $35 million. Some have disputed that figure, but even if it's half that, that is far higher of a marketing budget than you see for a standard documentary. This was a film that was produced by or acquired by the biggest company in the world, Amazon, given a nationwide release with an unheard of marketing budget. And when we look at the openings for documentary films in general, Justin Bieber Never Say Never is at number 1 at $29.5 million. This is all time domestically. Now, you know, what's a concert film? What's a documentary? I didn't put the Eras Tour here because it's a concert film, but Never Say Never, more of a documentary. Fahrenheit 9/11 comes in at number 2 with $23.9 million, followed by Michael Jackson's This Is It at $23.2 million. One Direction, This Is Us is at number 4. Chimpanzee is at number 5. This is back from the era of the Disney Nature theatrical documentary. Disney Nature's Earth is at number 6. Melania, according to my calculations, with the 7th highest opening for a documentary ever, ahead of Katy Perry, Part of Me back in 2012 at number 8. March of the Penguins at number 9. And 2016, Obama's America, which by virtue of its format is classified as a documentary, at $6.5 million. Now, this has been a weekend of a lot of, conspiracy theories or whatever you want to call them about the box office. I've seen some of them saying that Markiplier's grosses were suppressed. I've seen others saying that Melania's grosses were artificially boosted. I try to look into that whenever I hear about that, and there's no hard evidence either way. I really think that what you should take away from both of these is that you have with Iron Lung a film that was just an unprecedented success for the kind of movie that it is. And with Melania, again, this was a film that was boosted by the biggest company in the world, that was promoted by the sitting president of the United States to a fan base, I guess, if you want to call it that, that has been fiercely loyal to him in the past. So it's really not shocking that it did as well as it did. I get it. Whenever there's a result at the box office that people don't like, they want to look for a reason for why it's not legitimate. But I think the main thing to look at here is the continuing performance of both of these films and the special circumstances that surround both of these films. At number 4 this past weekend was Zootopia 2, which made $5.9 million. That's an 11.8% increase from the weekend before. It's now at just over $409 million. And as we track Zootopia 2's domestic total, this is the race for what will be the number 1 film released in 2025. In blue is a Minecraft movie, which came out last spring. The movie in orange is Avatar 3. The movie in red, or as I was, I think, erroneously corrected last week, pink, I think that's red, is Zootopia 2. Avatar 3, Fire and Ash, is basically not in this competition anymore, but I just wanted to keep it here to show you the importance of legs. It has flattened out compared to a Minecraft movie, but you can see the gap is closing even more quickly with Zootopia 2 and a Minecraft movie. Now, Zootopia 2 is already available for digital rental, those higher priced digital rentals and purchase. It'll be out on physical media in about a month, so it's got about a $15 million gap to close. I still think it's going to be close, but it continues to close the gap on a Minecraft movie to be the number 1 release of 2025. Rounding out the top 5, we have Avatar Fire and Ash, which dropped 11.8% and brought in another $5.6 million. It's trying to close the gap to get to $400 million domestically. At number 6 was the new Jason Statham movie Shelter. If it's January, you can almost bet there's going to be a new Jason Statham film at $5.5 million. Then we have last week's opener Mercy, which dropped 57.8% to $4.5 million. The Housemaid continuing to hold well, dropping 12.4% at $3.4 million. Marty Supreme is at number 9 with $2.9 million, still trying to become A24's first $100 million domestic grosser. And 28 years later, The Bone Temple comes in 10th place at $1.57 million. This one's just going to fade away, which is a shame because I think it's a really good movie. Dropping out of the top 10, we had 2 re-releases of Lord of the Rings films, The Fellowship of the Ring and The Two Towers, after 2 weeks in the top 10. Return to Silent Hill, according to most of my sources, out of the top 10 after 1 week. And Hamnet out of the top 10 for a 3rd time. It keeps popping in and out of the top 10, but it is now no longer a top 10 film. Looking at the biggest theater count changes for the past weekend, 28 years later, The Bone Temple lost 1,464 theaters. It's still in just over 2,000. Greenland 2 Migration dropped 1,275 theaters. It's still in 614. Primate dropped 920 theaters. It's now in over 1,200. Anaconda lost a big chunk of theaters, 755 of them. It's in over 1,000, just over 1,000. And Hamnet had a big expansion last week, but it contracted a bit this week. It lost 737 theaters. It's now in 1,259. Let's look at 2026's box office versus 2025's box office week by week. And you can see that this past weekend, we were pretty much on par with where we were last year. The last weekend in January last year saw the release of Companion as well as Dogman. We were down about 2.5%, but that's pretty even. So these last 2 weekends in January were the only 2 that were below last year, although this week was barely below last year's. And let's take our first look at the cumulative box office for 2026. Believe it or not, we're already through 1 month. And when we look at these totals, now this is in billions of dollars. So really, this is for the last 10 years. So 2016 to 2026, only 2016's box office total was over $1 billion. The good news is that this year, this January, was the highest grossing January since 2020 at $620 million approximately. That's the best since January of 2020, which came in at $898 million before theaters closed due to COVID. So that is a step in the right direction. It wasn't dramatically ahead of other post-COVID box office Januaries, but it was ahead of all of them. So that's good news. Right now, we're about $75 million ahead of where we were this time last year. So we'll see if February can keep pace and keep us on track to do better in 2026 than we did in 2025. And I know it's early, but this is the theatrical market share for all tickets sold since January 1st. Now, this is completely out of whack with what we're going to see later on in the year. This is just because these are the movies that were out in January. Disney sold the most tickets this year so far, 36.5% of all tickets sold. Avatar has a lot to do with that. Send Help as well was a Disney film. The all other slice is actually number 2 right now at 22.5%. That's your A24. That's your Markiplier. Those are the studios that are selling tickets that aren't one of the major studios. Lionsgate, look at them in 3rd place at 12.8%. That's not going to last long, but they're there for now. Sony's at 9.3%. Paramount at 7.7%. Universal at 7%. Amazon is at 4.1%. That I don't even know if you can see that teeny tiny little sliver there. That's Warner Brothers, and it's because they really didn't have any movies and don't have any movies in the marketplace right now. I think they're at less than 1%, but of course that is going to change as the year goes on. So enjoy this pie chart because other than Disney maybe being number 1, this is all going to change as we go through the rest of the year. And before we go to the rest of the show, I wanted to ask this week's Charts with Dan member poll question. With Iron Lung doing so well in movie theaters, I want to know, which YouTube creator or creators do you think should be the next to make a movie? Don't answer me. I have no ideas on what movie I would make, nor do I know how to make a movie. Answer people that are more qualified than I am. Who do you want to see make the jump from this platform to theaters next? Put your favorite in the comments of the member poll right now. If your answer's already there, just upvote it instead of leaving it twice. It helps me calculate the results, and I will reveal those results on next week's Charts with Dan. And last week's member poll question was about the Oscars. I asked what 2026 Oscar snub was most upsetting for you, and we had a pretty clear winner, which was No Other Choice in basically all categories. It was also very upsetting for me. That was number 1 with 41 votes. Wake Up Dead Man in any category was 2nd place with 25 votes. Then we had Jesse Plemons not nominated for Best Actor at 17 votes. Sorry Baby not getting an original Original Screenplay nomination was in fourth place with 11 votes, and that was tied with It Was Just an Accident, also being snubbed from every category with 11 votes. If you want to vote in these polls and you're not a member here on the channel, you can become one. Depending on how you're watching this video, there may just be a button for you to click that says Become a Member, or you can check out the description below. Not only do you get to vote in these polls each and every week, but you also get early access to some of my videos. You get custom badges and emoji to use down in the chat. So come on, be a member. We'd love to have you join the club. We have so many more numbers to break down, but before we do, I want to thank the sponsor for this week's episode. This episode's brought to you by Factor. It's winter, it's cold, you're probably still sore from shoveling your driveway. The last thing you want to do is spend even more energy making a meal from scratch or driving to the store in the snow. That's where Factor comes in, with fully prepared meals crafted for you by professional chefs. Next week, they have one of my favorites on the menu, smoky Gouda chicken with peppers. It's a great winter meal, and all of Factor's meals have quality ingredients like lean proteins and healthy fats. And you're not going to get the same stuff over and over again. Factor has 100 rotating weekly meals to keep things fresh, with options that include high-protein meals, ready-to-eat salads, and calorie-smart options. Factor meals arrive to your door always fresh, never frozen, and they're ready to eat in about 2 minutes. I spend a lot of time crunching numbers and watching movies, and Factor is a great option for those days when I'm on a tight schedule and I want good food fast. Head to factormeals.com/Murrell50off and use code Murrell50off to get 50% off and free breakfast for a year. Eat like a pro this month with Factor. New subscribers only, varies by plan. One free breakfast item per box for 1 year while subscription is active. Let's take a look now outside of the U.S. at the top 5 films internationally. This is all markets except for the United States and Canada. At number 1 was Avatar: Fire and Ash, with a 31.3% drop internationally to $19.3 million. Zootopia 2 dropped 13.5% to $17.3 million. The Housemaid dropping 23% to $16.39 million. Send Help opens with $8.1 million internationally, and India's Border 2 dropped 53.3% to $7.78 million. When you take those international numbers, you combine them with our domestic numbers, we get our top 5 films worldwide. And at number 1 was Send Help, opening to $27.2 million. That knocks Avatar: Fire and Ash off the top spot. It dropped 28.9% for a $24.9 million weekend. It's now crossed $1.4 billion worldwide. What a flop that movie is. Zootopia 2, that's a joke, by the way. Zootopia 2 dropped just 9.6% worldwide for a $23.2 million weekend. It is now approaching $1.8 billion. Iron Lung opened to $22 million worldwide, and The Housemaid rounds out the top 5 with $19.8 million. According to ComScore, it's now over $300 million worldwide, although some of these figures do vary according to which source you're looking at. And I wanted to note something interesting about Zootopia 2. It has now become the highest grossing Hollywood film in China when you measure it by local currency. Now, the exchange rate differs, so in US dollars, it may be a little bit lower than, say, Avengers Endgame. But in yuan, which is the Chinese currency, Zootopia 2 has now made more money than any other Hollywood film ever, at $4.46 billion. That puts it ahead of Avengers Endgame at $4.25 billion. And this is a really interesting group of movies. The Fate of the Furious is in third place. Furious 7 is in fourth place. That's why we keep getting Fast and Furious movies, or did at least. Avengers Infinity War is in fifth place. Then we have Aquaman. Reminder, this is all time for a Hollywood film in China at just over $2 billion. Transformers: Age of Extinction at $1.97 billion. This is the reason why Transformers: The Last Knight got made, because Age of Extinction did not do particularly well domestically, but it was an incredibly popular film in China. Venom, all time, number 8 in China. I keep forgetting how popular Venom was in China. And then we have 2 little films called Avatar and Avatar: The Way of Water at number 9 and 10. But when it comes to Chinese money, Zootopia 2, now the most popular Hollywood film of all time. Let's take a look now at some of our specialty charts, and we will start with the top per theater averages from this past weekend. At number 1 was the Charlie XCX mockumentary, if you want to call it that, although it's not really a comedy. I got a chance to see it at Sundance. The Moment, at just over $100,000 in 4 theaters. That's per theater. Natchez comes in second place at $17,000 per theater in 1 theater. In third place is A Poet, which played in 2 theaters and brought in $13,877 per theater. A Poet was Columbia's entry to the Oscars this year, and it is up for Best International Film at the Independent Spirit Awards. In fourth place is The Love That Remains with $11,624 per theater in 2 theaters. This film was Iceland's submission to the Academy Awards. It's about a family breaking apart, and it won the Palme d'Or at Cannes. That is not a typo. There's actually a prize that is often given at Cannes for the best dog performance in a film, and that one went to The Love Remains. And then rounding out the top 5, we have Back to the Past, which brought in $10,856 per theater in 64 theaters. Back to the Past is the latest from Hong Kong film legend Louis Koo, and did very, very well in limited release. And The Moment is having a moment at the box office. These are the best per theater averages for the last 10 or so years. This is 2015 to 2026. And The Moment put up the 8th best per theater average we've seen over that span at just over $100,000. That puts it ahead of movies like The Favorite and Call Me By Your Name. It bumped Moonlight off of this list. It comes in just behind Uncut Gems, opening in 5 theaters, as well as The Revenant. And then we have the top 5 of La La Land, Marty Supreme at the end of last year, Asteroid City, Parasite, and Steve Jobs, strangely, opening in 4 theaters. These were the top films in limited release this past week, which I define as 1,000 theaters or fewer. At number 1 was Back to the Past at just under $700,000 in 64 theaters. Then we had Klika in 540 theaters, which brought in $525,000. The Moment, despite being in just 4 theaters, brought in $427,000. It expands into wider release this upcoming weekend. No Other Choice brought in just over $400,000. And Arco, which is an Academy Award nominated film, brought in just over $400,000 in 302 theaters. Let's look at the annual domestic box office for movies released in 2026. Right now, Primate is at number 1, but there are a lot of other movies that are trying to take that number 1 spot away. 28 years later, The Bone Temple is just behind Primate at number 2. Then we have Mercy, which is up 1 spot to number 3, followed by the 2 big releases from this past weekend, Send Help at number 4 and Iron Lung at number 5. Greenland 2 Migration is down 3 spots to number 6. Melania enters the chart at number 7. Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring is at number 8 at $5.9 million. Then we have the Jason Statham film Shelter at number 9 and Return to Silent Hill down 3 spots to number 10. We Bury the Dead, the re-release of The Two Towers, the re-release of Return of the King, and The Raja Saab are off of the list. But when we look at all tickets sold since January 1st, including movies that came out in 2025, Avatar Fire and Ash is number 1 at $135.9 million, followed by Zootopia 2 at $71.1 million, The Housemaid at $64.3 million, Marty Supreme at $51.8 million, and Anaconda at $31.8 million. Primates at number 6, followed by the SpongeBob movie. 28 years later is up 2 spots to number 8, Song Sung Blues up to number 9, and David falls 2 spots to number 10. So that's everything I've got for you as far as the box office, but I have a boatload of streaming numbers for you because we reached the end of 2025. Netflix put out their What We Watched report, which had all of their viewing numbers for the end of 2025, the last 6 months. And Nielsen also put out their year-end streaming report. So I can bring you definitive numbers now on the most watched movies and shows of 2025 and updates to the all-time most watched movies and shows since these 2 organizations have been releasing their lists. But let's start off with the latest numbers from Netflix that are weekly for 2026. So this is January 19th to the 25th. At number 1 was The Rip in its second week, which brought in another 40.41 million views. The Netflix series His and Hers came in second at 17.18 million views. Kidnapped, Elizabeth Smart came in third place at 15.9 million views. At number 4 is No Time to Die at 9.59 million views. This news came out, I think about a month ago, maybe a little bit more, but Amazon has licensed some James Bond films to Netflix. We're back to the era of licensing now. No Time to Die and some other other Bond films hit the platform last week, so that's why we see No Time to Die up there. It is still owned by Amazon, but being licensed to Netflix. At number 5 is People We Meet on Vacation with 9.31 million views. At number 6 is a South Korean series called Can This Love Be Translated at just under 9 million views. Then we have the Agatha Christie series Seven Dials at number 7. K-Pop Demon Hunters still in the top 10 at number 8. It's moving down. It looks like it's going to exit the top 10 soon, but it is still there. The Magnificent Seven, this would be the remake version with Denzel Washington's at number 9 at 6.54 million views. And at number 10 is Alex Honnold's latest death-defying adventure, Skyscraper Live, which brought in 6.21 million views. So let's take a look now at what some of the most watched movies and shows in 2025 on Netflix were. Again, this is according to the What We Watched report. Twice a year, Netflix releases an exhaustive database of just how much all of its movies and shows reviewed. I picked through all of those numbers, put it all together to bring you these numbers. Let's start first of all with the most watched Netflix movies of 2025. And of course, this is no surprise. K-Pop Demon Hunters number 1. Over 500 million views, 518.3 million views. That is ridiculous. Over 300 million more than the number 2 movie, which was Back in Action at 190.3 million views. Happy Gilmore 2 comes in third place at 135.1 million views. Then we have Straw at 122.3 million. The Life List at 118 million. Havoc at number 6 at 112.4 million. That's the Tom Hardy action movie, I think from early in 2025. Despicable Me 4, one of 3 non-Netflix originals here at number 7 with just over 100 million. Then we have Exterritorial at number 8, The Secret Life of Pets at number 9, and Despicable Me 3 at number 10 with 98.4 million views. And the thing to remember with these numbers is that they're global numbers. So even if a movie like, let's say, the Despicable Me films isn't necessarily streaming on Netflix here in the United States, they could very well be streaming on the platform in other countries because licensing varies from country to country. Looking at the most watched Netflix shows in 2025, Adolescence was number 1 at 164.9 million views, followed by Squid Game Season 3 with 150 million views. Squid Game Season 2, remember it kind of bracketed the year at the end of 2024 going into 2025 at 134.4 million views. Wednesday Season 2 at 123.9 million views, which is impressive but far lower than the first season. Ms. Rachel Season 1 rounds out the top 5 at just over 100 million views. Then we have Stranger Things 5 at 93.5 million views, although keep in mind a lot of its viewership, including the viewership that came in when that final episode was released, is not included here because it happened in 2026, which is after Netflix stopped calculating these numbers. So even without that finale viewership, Stranger Things 5 still the number 6 most watched show of 2025 on Netflix. At number 7 was Untamed at 92.8 million views. The first season of Stranger Things was one of the 10 most watched Netflix shows of 2025. That's how popular the series was at 70.9 million views. The only, if you want to call, archive series on this chart. Zero Day was at number 9 at 70.6 million views, and Sirens rounds out the top 10 with 69.7 million views. And when you merge those lists, these were the top 10 most watched Netflix programs in 2025 according to their numbers. Of course, K-Pop Demon Hunters at number 1, Back in Action at number 2, Adolescence at number 3, Squid Game Season 3 at number 4, Happy Gilmore 2 at number 5, Squid Game Season 2 at number 6, Wednesday Season 2 at number 7, Straw at number 8, The Life List at number 9, and Havoc at number 10. These are, according to my calculations, the top 10 most watched Netflix films of all time, or at least since they began releasing numbers in 2021. Now, the totals for things like K-Pop Demon Hunters may vary a little bit because they're different sets of numbers that I'm comparing. So K-Pop Demon Hunters, for example, is a little bit lower on this chart because there's a little bit more viewership that's not included here. But still, it's at number 1 with just under 500 million views. Even if it's over 500 million views, it's still number 1. That bumps Red Notice down to number 2 all time, followed by The Boss Baby and We Can Be Heroes. The Super Mario Brothers movie moves up into the top 5 since the last time we looked at these numbers. The Gray Man moves down to number 6. Minions, now a top 10 most watched movie of all time on Netflix at number 7, 228.6 million views. Shrek, though, just behind, so that's not so bad, also at 228 million views. Extraction 2 moves down to number 9, and Leo, which was a Netflix animated film that I didn't really think made much of an impact. Now their 10th most watched movie ever at 224 million views. So obviously a lot of kids love the movie Leo. As far as the most viewed Netflix series of all time, Wednesday season 1, because of the boost to that first season when season 2 came out, is at number 1 with just under 400 million views, followed by Squid Game season 1, which gets bumped down to second place. Stranger Things 4 saw a huge surge in viewership in 2025 because of the last season coming out. It's now the third most watched program since Netflix started releasing numbers a few years ago. That means Squid Game season 2 is at number 4, Bridgerton season 1 is at number 5, Stranger Things 3 enters the chart at number 6, so a big surge in viewership for that season. The Night Agent season 1 moves down to number 7, Bridgerton season 2 down to number 8, Adolescence, now the 9th most viewed Netflix series of all time, and Squid Game season 3 moves down to number 10. The Queen's Gambit, now off the list as far as all-time most viewed series on Netflix. And again, when you combine those lists, these are the most viewed Netflix programs since they started releasing numbers in 2021. K-Pop Demon Hunters at number 1, followed by Wednesday season 1. Red Notice down to number 3. Squid Game season 1 down to number 4. The Boss Babies at number 5. We Can Be Heroes is at number 6. The Super Mario Brothers movie is at number 7. Again, in many countries around the world, it is streaming on Netflix. Stranger Things 4 is at number 8. The Gray Man is down to number 9, and Minions, really? Now the 10th most watched program ever on Netflix. What are we doing to ourselves? Extraction 2 and The Mother drop off of the chart altogether. Let's take a look now at the latest numbers from Nielsen and also Nielsen's 2025 year-end numbers, but we'll start with the latest chart, which includes the last week of 2025, December 29th to January 4th, 2026. These were the most watched streaming movies for that week. Evil Influencers at number 1 with 10.3 million hours watched, followed by Wake Up Dead Man at number 2. K-Pop Demon Hunters returns to the top 10. There were a bunch of Christmas movies that dominated this on last week's show, but K-Pop Demon Hunters back at number 3 at 7.56 million hours watched, followed by Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse on Netflix, Wrath of Man on Netflix, One Battle After Another on HBO Max with 5.48 million hours watched, Zootopia on Disney Plus at number 7 with 4.3 million hours watched, Avatar: The Way of Water also on Disney Plus. I guess a lot of people watching those either before or after seeing the new films in theaters. Man on Fire's at number 9, and a Minecraft movie returns to the top 10. When we look at the most watched streaming shows for the same week, closing out 2025, Stranger Things, number 1, 144.1 million hours watched. That's a pretty significant number, and I'll tell you why in a second. Landman is in second place at 26.3 million hours watched, followed by The Closer at number 3, Homeland at number 4, Bluey at number 5, Fallout on Amazon at number 6, Runaway on Netflix debuts at number 7 at 14.3 million hours watched, NCIS is at number 8, The Big Bang Theory returns to the top 10 at number 9, and Grey's Anatomy returns to the top 10 at number 10. And I mentioned that 144.1 million hours watched was a notable number. That's because it was the best weekly performance from any streaming series in 2025. The last week of the year, Stranger Things did better numbers than any other show and any other week of that season. Better than its debut on Thanksgiving, better than the debut of the second batch of episodes over Christmas. And when we look at the top weekly performances for 2025, domestically, 4 of the top 5 were Stranger Things. So number 1 was the week that the season finale aired. Number 2 was the week that the first batch of episodes for season 5 aired. Number 3 was the week that the second batch of episodes premiered. Squid Game at number 4, as Squid Game season 2 was debuting at the end of 2024, going into 2025. And then at number 5 was Stranger Things the week after the first batch of episodes debuted. So yeah, just phenomenal viewership for Stranger Things domestically, going out on a high note when we look at the week-to-week ratings. These were the top shows by watch time per available episode. So you take the total watch time divided by the number of episodes you can watch. That's how we get this number. At number 1 was Stranger Things at 3.43 million hours watched per episode. Remember, for Nielsen purposes, series are considered as a whole. They're not broken down by seasons. So even over 42 episodes, Stranger Things still number 1. Runaways at number 2 with 1.8 million hours per episode for each of its 8 episodes. Landman is in third at 1.46 million hours per episode. Fallout's in fourth at 1.457 million hours per episode. The Beast in Me is at number 5 with 812,000 hours per episode. Then we have the Copenhagen Test at number 6, Percy Jackson and the Olympians at number 7, Pluribus at number 8, The Pit at number 9. What I think is interesting about this is this was not the week that the new season premiered. So a lot of people were going back to rewatch or watch for the first time season 1. Enough people that The Pit gets back into this top 10. And The Closer coming in at number 10 with 214,000 hours per episode. As I mentioned, Nielsen also put out their end of the year 2025 numbers. Now, they are not nearly as comprehensive as what we see from Netflix, but it's enough for us to put together a list of the most watched movies and shows of 2025. And looking at the most watched streaming movies, now remember, these are domestic numbers only, but no shocker here. K-pop Demon Hunters, more than doubling up the number 2 movie with 342.5 million hours watched to be the most watched streaming movie in the United States in 2025. Moana 2 comes in second place at 157.1 million hours watched. Then we have Despicable Me 4 at number 3, Happy Gilmore 2 at number 4, Wicked rounding out the top 5 at 113.6 million hours watched. Back in Action on Netflix at 100 million hours watched, Moana at number 7, Frozen at number 8, Cars at number 9, 86 million hours watched, and The Wild Robot, I'm happy to see that movie there, rounding out the top 10 at 84.3 million hours watched. These were the most watched library streaming series in the US in 2025, so shows that could not be considered original programming for the streamers. Bluey was the most watched library streaming series at just over 750 million hours watched. It was overall the most watched series on streaming in the United States. Grey's Anatomy coming in second, followed by NCIS at number 3, SpongeBob SquarePants at number 4, Bob's Burgers at number 5, Family Guy at number 6, The Big Bang Theory at number 7, Law & Order SVU at number 8, and Criminal Minds at number 9. Now, all 9 of those shows were also 9 of the top 10 most watched streaming series of the year. There was one original show that was one of the most watched streaming series of the year. I guess you're probably not going to have to think too hard to figure out which one it is. The Rookie rounding out the top 10 as far as library streaming shows at 380.1 million hours watched. As far as the most watched original streaming series, yeah, you guessed it, the winner going away was Stranger Things at 665.8 million hours watched. Overall, it was the third most watched streaming series in the United States last year. Squid Game coming in second place at 373.5 million hours watched. Wednesday coming in third place at 333 million hours watched. Landman on Paramount Plus. This is a huge streaming hit. It was the fourth most watched original streaming show of 2025. Reacher rounding out the top 5 on Amazon Prime Video. Ginny and Georgia on Netflix at number 6 at 237.5 million hours watched. Love Island USA on Peacock putting up huge numbers at number 7. The Night Agent at number 8. Love is Blind at number 9. And Gabby's Dollhouse on Netflix rounding out the top 10 at 199.8 million hours watched. And because we have all of 2025's numbers, we can now update the most watched movies and shows since Nielsen started releasing data in 2020. Still, the most watched movie is Moana at 974.5 million hours watched. It's difficult to change rankings here because there's just a huge volume of viewing data now over these years. Encanto at number 2, Frozen at number 3. The Super Mario Bros. Movie moves up to number 4, the fourth most watched movie since 2020 in the United States. Frozen 2 drops down to number 5. K-pop Demon Hunters in just 1 year, less than a year really, is now the 6th most watched streaming movie ever, or at least since Nielsen started reporting numbers in 2020, up against movies that have been on streaming services for years. And of course, it's going to keep moving up this chart. Sing 2 is down to number 7. Luca is down to number 8. Zootopia, now the 9th most watched streaming movie since 2020. And Turning Red moves down to number 10. The Secret Life of Pets 2 dropping off of this chart. As far as the most watched library streaming series since 2020, Grey's Anatomy still remains number 1 at 3.76 billion hours watched. Overall, it is the most watched streaming series in the United States over the last 5 years. NCIS at number 2, Bluey is there at number 3, Criminal Minds is at number 4. Coco Melon really hasn't made the charts in a very long time, but it was so popular for that window of time when people were watching that it's still the 5th most watched library streaming show. Supernatural's at number 6, The Big Bang Theory's at number 7, SpongeBob SquarePants enters the all-time top 10 at number 8, Family Guy's at number 9. So those 9 shows are 9 of the 10 most watched streaming series since 2020. Again, I'll give you one guess as to what the only original show on the list is. And then Bob's Burgers rounding out the top 10 at 1.18 billion hours watched. Heartland and Gilmore Girls were both top 10 all-time streaming shows. They've both been bumped off the list. These are the most watched original streaming series since 2020. And you guessed it, at number 1 is Stranger Things at 1.5 billion hours watched. Overall, the 7th most watched streaming series over the last 5 years. The only original streaming series to crack the top 10. Ozark moves down to number 2 with 1 billion hours watched, not really racking up a lot of new watch time. Love is Blind is at number 3. Bridgerton's at number 4. That's going to go up because we have a new season coming out. I think it's actually already out. Virgin River's at number 5. Squid Game moves up to number 6. The Crown moves down to number 7. Wednesday enters the all-time chart at number 8 at 643 million hours watched. The Great British Baking Show moves down to number 9. And Lucifer, which is considered an original show because it did produce original seasons for Netflix, is at number 10 at 621.9 million hours watched. You dropping out of the all-time top 10 for original streaming series. And that's what I've got for you as far as numbers this week. You can probably tell now why the show was a little bit late. I was fresh off the plane and I had to get a little bit of sleep because I was a little tired from my time in Park City. But before I go, I wanted to draw your attention to some things that you might be interested in watching both in theaters and at home this upcoming week. First of all, today on Amazon Prime Video, we have the season 2 finale of Fallout and then several movies that are available today on premium video on demand. So those higher priced rentals and available for purchase. The Housemaid, you can now watch at home. Hamnet, you can now watch at home. We Bury the Dead is now available for home watching. The Secret Agent is now available for home watching. And The Plague, which I really enjoyed. It was a tiny movie that really just came and went early this year. You can also now watch at home. Tomorrow, on Wednesday, there is a special edition of The Muppet Show airing on both ABC and Disney+, a celebration of 50 years of The Muppet Show. I've actually heard pretty good things, so if you like The Muppets, tune in tomorrow on ABC and Disney+. On Thursday, oh boy, it's time for this movie to blow up. Ella McKay makes its debut on Hulu, so all you Ella McKay stans that have just been waiting for your moment, Thursday's your day. Also debuting on Thursday on Netflix is the 4th season of The Lincoln Lawyer. That show's still around. Then on Friday, we have several movies that are hitting theaters. First of all, as I mentioned, we have the wide expansion of the Charlie XCX film, The Moment. I did see it at Sundance. I may try to bring you a full review for that here this week. The Strangers, Chapter 3 also hits wide release, although at this point, are they really even strangers anymore? There's been so many of these movies. Solo Mio hits wide release this weekend. This is the latest Angel Studios film starring Kevin James as a jilted groom. You know what I haven't seen for a while? A Dracula movie. And there's another version of Dracula hitting theaters this week from Luc Besson. Caleb Landry Jones plays Dracula. Christoph Waltz is a co-star. There's going to be blood and probably some kind of like gothic love. It's Dracula. You know what you're getting into. Also opening in theaters this weekend is Whistle, which is from Corin Hardy, director of one of my least favorite movies of all time, The Nun. Daphne Keane leads a group of high schoolers who find an Aztec death whistle, and I'm guessing they blow it. I'm going to go out on a limb. Spoiler alert. I'm guessing that they're going to blow the Aztec death whistle and weird stuff is going to happen. I'm just using my psychic powers here to predict what happens in that movie. Stray Kids, the Dominate experience, will be in many theaters this weekend. This is, of course, the theatrical version of Stray Kids' performance at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. As an avowed K-pop fan myself, of course I know who Stray Kids are, and their music. I'm very versed in it. I'm just telling you in case you don't know, because of course I know, because I'm very hip and I'm very with it. Opening in limited release this upcoming weekend is Pelion, which is from A24. They're releasing the film here in the States. I've heard good things about this movie. I believe it came out in the UK last year. It stars Alexander Skarsgård, who takes on Harry Melling as his submissive partner. Yeah, that's a concept. The movie is up for several awards for Best First Feature, including at the BAFTAs this year, and the reviews have been pretty strong. Plus, I like Alexander Skarsgård. He's a good actor. Scarlet, which came out earlier this year, will be hitting IMAX this weekend. That's the latest film from Mamoru Hosoda. The Winter Olympics start on Friday, so we can all pretend to be super into ice skating for 2 weeks and then not watch it again for 4 more years. Queen of Chess is a documentary that also played at Sundance. I didn't see it because I knew that it was coming out on Netflix this Friday, but I heard good things. And then a movie from 2025 that I actually enjoyed called Splitsville will be debuting on Hulu this Friday. And then on Sunday, this just goes to show you how out of it I've been. When I was looking up what was happening this week, I was like, oh, the Super Bowl's on Sunday? Yeah, I've been in a little bubble for 2 weeks. But yes, the Super Bowl is on Sunday. It's airing here in the United States on NBC. It's airing apparently everywhere else in the world on different platforms. So yes, the NFL season comes to an end this Sunday on NBC. And that's everything I've got for you this week. I told you it was going to be a big show to compensate for the short show last week. I will also be doing a lot of work this week to catch up. Iron Lung, I know a lot of people have been asking if I'm going to see Iron Lung, if I'm going to do a review of Iron Lung. I am going to try to catch it in the next day or two and bring you my thoughts on it. I'm also thinking about doing a live show tomorrow. It's been a while since I did a live show. I didn't really plan on taking such a hiatus, but I may just do a catch-up live show. Not like ketchup. I shouldn't do that. Not ketchup, like the condiment, catch up, where we just, I kind of open it up and we just talk about whatever you want to talk about, because it's been, I think, a couple months since I did a live show. Again, unplanned. It's just a lot of weird things getting in the way. So I'm going to do that. I am going to do a recap of all the movies that I saw at the Sundance Film Festival, although I should probably get the other stuff out of the way because I think I had a great time at Sundance. It really was a dream come true. I'll talk about it more in that video. But I think combined, all of my coverage from Sundance did less than maybe the first hour of a review that I would do for a Marvel movie or something. So I do have to prioritize some things over Sundance, but I am still going to do my full rundown of all the movies I saw at the Sundance Film Festival. And of course, I'm going to keep my eyes and ears open for other stuff that you might want here on the channel, because I got to make up for lost time. I've been gone for a while. So let me know what you want to hear from me. I got a lot of great response to the Hangout show that I did with Joe and Spencer from my buddies from the Screen Junkies days. We are working on getting another one of those done. There's lots of stuff in the works, so stay tuned right here. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. Hit that thumbs up. Tell people that you liked the show. Do all the things that help to bring engagement if you like what I'm doing here. And again, if you're watching and you were one of the people that came up when I was in Utah and said hello, it really was amazing to see how many people, other film fans, people that watch the channel, were also at Sundance. And it was so great to meet so many of you. And thank you for saying hello. It really was a nice boost for me when I kind of needed it at the beginning of the year. So thank you to everybody that I met at Sundance. Thank you to everybody who's watching. Thank you to my sponsor today, Factor. But most of all, thank you for watching this video. Until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you then. Bye.